we are finally live. Good to see everyone. I suspect more people will be showing up as time moves on, but we only have an hour. So let's just jump into things. Good to have everyone with us today. As always, you will get preference if you have a question. Just ask it in the chat, and I will make every effort to just stop what I'm doing and address it right away. Otherwise, I will just continue. So the agenda for today is as follows. These are 6 points. I'm going to just reiterate the most up-to-date mainnet timeline, which I think is getting more and more reliable as we're getting closer. Then I'm going to briefly review the Carthage network scope and the launch process for that. Then I'm going to go through a quick little reminder and a guide for how and why you should be thinking of nominating if you are a stakeholder in the launch, which I suspect many of the people on this call will be. Then I'm going to go through a reminder of what gateways are and some additional information of why you may want to try to do that. I guess now is the first time you really could have tried to do it because, yeah, things are more in order, and I think there's a clear reason for why you would want to do it. Then I'm going to clarify the role of Gleev, which is a name that we've kind of thrown around a bit, and just define how it's distinct from Atlas and what we think the benefit of that is for the community, and then for the questions that were submitted. And I guess any questions that show up as I go through. All right, so mainnet timeline. What we are currently looking at is, I guess it's less than a week, actually. It's next Monday. The Carthage network will launch. I think that we can say that with pretty high confidence, right, Martin?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We've gone through substantial testing. The Genesis block is now pretty stable. Vesting stuff, parameters, bootstrapping, it's all been tested internally. I don't even remember, is there a lot of community stuff that we are still expecting to do from now until Monday? I know we're not going to be waiting for that, but I think we're pretty set at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are the main things to test would be the things we haven't really reached internally, but things that should have been working already. So it would be a shame if video stopped working, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But so I don't really expect that to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's Carthage. That's in a few days, and then we expect that network to last for, let's say, roughly a month, if everything goes well. So that's where we are with that. You can, of course, if you're part of the founding member program, just keep doing what you're doing, and the scores are computed and the allocations are being recomputed and updated, and that will happen all the way until the very end. So that's still the case. If you are somehow confused or don't understand the amount of tokens you have, then just, I guess, ping me, and then we will resolve it internally. Time's kind of running out, so that's becoming more and more important. Okay, so let's quickly go through the Carthage network itself. What's kind of the goal there? It's really kind of 2 buckets in terms of objectives. One is to the operational side, which is like people making sure that they have access to the funds for the accounts they gave us. That's the team and investors and founding member people and everything, and checking that vesting works. It's aligned with what you think it should be for your tokens. So it's very important that people do this and that they store their seeds properly. This is the last occasion where we will help you with that. And if there are any problems, we can kind of easily recover the issue for you. And we also want people to we encourage people to try to get involved in nomination, which I'll get back to later in my little presentation here. And we want also our validator community to become familiar with our bootstrapping process and to, I think in a more serious way than in our testnets, learn what it will take to be a validator on JoyStream. On the technical side, it's again verifying that the process works technically. The fees and parameters are sane. I would have liked for us to have more networks actually with live fees. I think that's a mistake in the way we planned this. That's on me, I think. We kind of underestimated the significance and complexity in rolling all that out. So that's been a big undertaking, all the benchmarking and tuning we've got to do and modeling work, but it's there now. So it's just about making sure we don't get any crazy results. But that's certainly a goal. The new gateway working group is a genuinely new on-chain feature that's getting rolled out, which I'll touch upon later. And then everything is pretty much being feature frozen. There's actually a ton of new things coming to Pioneer and Atlas, which I haven't been able to cover in this talk. It will be in the kind of announcement post, but after that, we don't expect anything to happen unless something goes wrong before the launch. So that's kind of the goal of the Carthage network. And just to reiterate, this is it. The accounts you give us now, after you check that they work, don't lose access to the keys and the seed phrase for it. And there's lots of good information online on how to safely store your seed phrase for your keys. Don't just have one copy, and things can happen to buildings and people, and you can forget things, and you can land in the hospital, and like lots of things. So just be mindful of that. Joystream is a system with on-chain governance. You have seen other chains do quite invasive things when it comes to recovery of funds and losses. I would not count on, the ability of the community, the ability and willingness of the community to kind of coordinate on saving your funds if you lose them. So this is pretty much it, I would say. Okay, then I just want to quickly go through like how are we actually launching the chain itself, because the consensus process that we use on Joystream, and it's pretty much the case for all the modern proof of stake systems, they're kind of sensitive to the interaction between validators. They're very sensitive to timing and delays, and so you have to be careful in the way you scale up your validator set. So it's going to be rolled out in 4 different phases, and the first phase starts on Monday. The first phase is called the frozen phase. It lasts about 24 hours. During this stage, only JS Genesis. So for anyone who doesn't know who's on this call, JS Genesis is the company that's been building the technology and supporting the community for the Joystream blockchain, just in case you didn't know. So JS Genesis will be having kind of root access to the system, and will be running all the validators that start in the Genesis block, of which there will be, I think, 9. And then once that kind of is looking stable, we'll transition to the next stage, which is called the Thon stage, which is going to be a few days. It says 6 here. I think that's probably maybe a little bit more than what we really need. But then, so I should say there will be a runtime upgrade, which we do without the use of the council. So there's no election or a council, which will be like in the initial stage of the system, just because you wouldn't even have had time, and there wouldn't have been any memberships or anything like that. Actually, Martin, so the memberships get injected in the frozen stage or in the thawed stage?
That's the reason to have a single key, because it's right. A lot of transactions, and it happens to be online. So we just do them in like chunks of 50 members. So it'll be about 10 minutes or something to get them up and running. And of course, the tokens will already be there. So, and then the reason to have the 24 hours there is just to have all the validators equal time to get prepared for the thon stage. So the reality of our work will be done in like an hour for frozen.
Right. Yep. So
there's this, just a small Norwegian note there at the top if you want to relay to the community why.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, it was a bit. This slide was a bit rushed, like the whole thing. It's a bit hectic these days. So I elected to insert some Norwegian here just because I thought maybe it'd be funny. No, I just forgot to remove it. Sorry about that. All right. It's embarrassing. There's probably more stuff like that in here. Okay. So anyone who has a membership now will have a membership on Carthage, and the founding members will have a kind of a special signal in that bootstrapping process, which kind of distinguishes their their membership as being a founding member, and that will forever be the case, well, at least on mainnet and beyond, and certainly on Carthage. And I think also Pioneer now has a special way of showing a distinct presentation for the founding members for every other member. So there's that. In the Thawne stage, that's where, I should go back. Maybe this is getting too detailed. Stop me if it is, but you can already from the very beginning, everyone can start to signal that they want to stake and be validators. So that part is actually available from the very earliest moment. But it's just that this staking doesn't have any effect while we're in that stage. Next stage, we will actually allow third parties to enter the validator set by switching from proof of authority to proof of stake. And we will increase the validator count gradually to, it says here, about 24. And then, if everything looks fine, there'll be another runtime upgrade to the supervised stage, in which case all the normal transactions that are supposed to be available will be available. So that's the first moment you can vote and you can run for the council and make a proposal and publish a video and so that will take as much as 6 days or a week actually. And with this timeline,
add that, because the initial part of the supervised stage will be the ending of the announcing stage of the election. So before council has been set, which will be at day 15 after launch, there will not be any roles, which means that there won't be any content really. So just to clarify, it will be quite boring a few days after supervised as well.
So this is kind of awkward. It's like you don't want to really have a testnet like this, but we have to do it this way so it actually is true to the way it will work when we launch the main network, where the priority is to have it be a really safe and gradual process. And while there is this pseudo authority, which is removed only in the deliberated stage, we also have the ability to kind of fix any unforeseen problems during that rolling out period, which is, I think, an extra comfort. So I hope that was valuable. I hope someone clips this and just makes this its own little snippet for the validators to review. There are some articles. Well, there is one article specifically on the launch process on the handbook, which can give you more details than this table, but it's a good summary. Okay, so next point is how to start nominating, which is relevant to everyone who has tokens in the Genesis block. So certainly all the founding members and team members and so on. So all the nice avatars you see on here are different validator operations. I think like 80% of them are somewhere between 60 and 80 from what I can see are professional, which is great. But we have some hobbyists and some community members as well. So these are the people who are currently interested in running validators for JoyStream, and they're hanging out in our validator lounge. And nominating, I guess I should just define what that is for people who don't know. That's what anyone who has tokens can do in order to help someone become a validator. And a validator, for those who may not know, is someone who is allowed the opportunity to make blocks with other block producers, sort of like miners in Bitcoin, and is involved in the process in reaching agreement on kind of what the longest chain is for a proof of stake blockchain. So nominating someone, something everyone can do who has tokens, and I think it's a good idea for everyone to do so, for as many people to do so. And I guess I should just explain like what is it actually for. The point is, of course, that when you nominate, you're kind of giving power or authority or I guess space for a particular actor to be a validator, and that contributes to the security insofar as you're picking someone who's doing that in a good way, who is honest and supporting the system and following the protocol. And the reason for that is because if someone else wants to kind of subvert the system, which you could do in a number of different ways, they now have to kind of get more stake that they lock in favor of their rogue validators than the ones which are being staked in favor of or nominated in favor of by the good guys, so to speak. So that's very important. Obviously, security is pivotal for a system like this to work and be, so that people don't start corrupting elections by censoring votes or proposals or whatever it would be. It kind of would undermine everything. So the reason to do it, I guess there's kind of a public reason, a private reason. The public reason, as I said, just to support the system to make it actually work. If you're a stakeholder, you should definitely consider that. But there is also an incentive for you to do so as someone who has tokens. So you get rewarded basically for nominating or staking in favor of a validator. This is kind of a involved calculus, how that works. I'll just give a high level overview. Correct me if I'm going to be saying something wrong here, Martin, because you've been more focused on this than me. But basically, the logic goes a little bit something like this. You can nominate, that is, you can kind of take a chunk of your tokens and vote in favor of a validator, but you could do so with multiple validators at once. In fact, it's sort of in your interest to do so, given the way rewards work in our system. So if you just think about one validator at a time, the validator will generate a reward from the system as a result of their validator activities, and they will get transaction fees and so on. And every validator has more or less, without getting into complications, the same amount. And then what happens is that each validator gets to deduct a pre-specified commission, which they use to cover their own operations and have a profit margin and, basically be a business. And then the remainder is distributed to everyone who nominated in favor of this validator in a pro rata fashion. So one kind of complication here is the total amount that all the validators receive is a function of how much staking or nomination is going on in total. So the system, there's this little chart that this diagram is not actually the one, doesn't apply to us. We have functionally, it's the same, but the numbers are not the same. I didn't have time to make a new one, but this is from the Web3 Foundation research wiki. But basically, it's trying to suggest to you that there's kind of an ideal amount of staking, which gets the highest amount of reward. And our system works sort of in the same way, but the actual specific amount of reward will depend on how much overall staking there is. If there is way too much, then there should be it should become less attractive to do so. And if there's way too little, the reward should be bigger. That's kind of a hand-wavy way of describing it. So that's the way rewards work, and that's the selfish reason to nominate in favor of validators. And anyone who has tokens can do so. And in particular, if your tokens are locked due to vesting, that's an excellent thing to do. And you should also keep in mind you can still vote in elections even if you are using them for nominating someone. Okay. Now, of course, this is not totally without any kind of risk. It is. First of all, of course, there's this business of not being able to move your funds. Now, if they are already locked due to vesting, it's not a big deal. But if they aren't, then you will be giving that up for some period of time. And there is a kind of a predefined period of time you have to wait until you can get them back. You can't just get them back whenever you want. And also there is this kind of worst case scenario where if the validator that you have kind of put your vote in favor of does something bad, broadly speaking, then you may lose some of your coins, which sounds scary, but I think, at least from your point of view, Martin, you would take the position that this is kind of unlikely to happen under most kind of normal
it would
circumstances.
have to be coordinated, likely would have to be coordinated event, or that you were just extremely reckless. For example, if you drop off one time and then you, instead of fixing your node because it crashes or something, you just say you want to validate again, and then it happens again and you do it again. If that would be the only way you could get there by accident, I think.
Yeah.
But if you do multiple keys on one node or something like that, then it's a very different, or same keys on multiple nodes, then it's a faster way to get there.
Yeah. So there is some reason to kind of pay attention to who you're giving your nomination to. So we kind of quickly go through like what do you actually do to do this. There is again a guide which explains this to you on the handbook, which you can follow step by step. But roughly speaking, you need to have two accounts set up for this. One is called a stash account. That's the account which has like all of the tokens that you're using to validate, to nominate. That's typically supposed to be very safe. You're not supposed to have it on your computer or like use it to spend under normal circumstances. And then you have a controller account, which is kind of more this spending account where you can use it to kind of manage your stake. And then you have to kind of pick who you want to validate with. And there are kind of range of different things you want to think about. One is the commission, as I mentioned. How much do they take for themselves versus return to you? If they go to either extreme, you may want to be cautious about that. The validators can stake themselves for themselves, and if they have some coins to do that, that certainly helps with their credibility. It shows they kind of have skin in the game. So that's certainly a positive signal. I'm not exactly sure how many of the validators we have in our network actually have a good number of tokens. So
they have to stake. It's not they can.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah,
they
but
have
it's
a
like
higher minimum number than the nominator.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Right. But that's still, that number is like in the overall scope of things is quite low.
Yeah, I think we have it will be divided by 3. Is it 33,000 joy?
Okay.
I'm gonna something like that. 40 maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think my point is just that it's likely like much less than the people who actually have the stake, like the founding members. So there is a bit of a disconnect there. I think most of the founding member program points were not earned for validation. So the overlap there hasn't been so big. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Like we rewarded much more like being a council member or a content curator or something like that.
Yeah,
but
anyway,
especially yeah. Then there's the issue of like just knowing who they are. That is actually quite helpful because it allows you to see kind of their operation, understand more about like how they run things, how many other networks they're involved with. And there's a little bit of an issue with our system here because there isn't a good like on-chain way to know like this person with this account, who are they in the real world. We don't have a great system for that where you can sort of even trust it. I mean, we have this in the membership system now, or soon, where you can at least associate other information, but that may be fake. So this is what we're going to be doing is I have a ton of information now from all these different parties who are interested in being validators, and we're going to be adding a list to our handbook, which kind of features some basic information on each of them. And then we need to get their account on there, which I actually realized today we don't have. But that at least will be a guide for people who want to nominate to understand, okay, you know, these people seem kind of dodgy and risky, and this person's kind of seems very credible. So some care needs to be taken to kind of pick who you want to not back with your tokens, basically. Then you want to look at events like how often they've been slashed and error points. These are basically things that relate to their performance or lack thereof. I don't actually know. I think we need to update our guides to clearly explain how people could consume this information. I don't think does the Polkadot apps show this well?
I don't think so. I think you need to use chain state, which is not so fun.
So this is clearly a future enhancement for Pioneer for whoever has the capacity and interest to do that. We're gonna have to find some other way to, as a halfway house before we have that, but that's relevant. You of course don't want to focus all of your tokens in one validator, just from a risk perspective, and also because it's actually better for you to not do so, just because every validator gets an equal share. So that's, you just have to make a decision there, and then you have to kind of follow up and make sure that whatever you decided back in the day kind of makes sense on a semi-regular basis. I mean, you could not do that, but you know, then you may be taking more risk than you are aware of, basically. So these are the steps involved. I encourage everyone to consider it, both for the system and for your own sake. there is continuous minting happening, and by taking share in this activity, you will both not be diluted, and or you be less diluted, or you may get a positive return depending on what the numbers actually end up being. Okay, so that is the end of the story on the Carthage and nomination side. I haven't paid attention to the chat, but I don't think there have been any questions yet. So keep in mind, if you have any questions, you're going to be first in the line. So I'll just continue until I get any. Yeah. Okay, so next thing I want to cover is why you should run a gateway. As I mentioned, there is the gateway working group, which will be rolled out in Carthage. It's like the last major runtime enhancement we're doing. And what is that about, and why should you get involved? That's what I'm trying to convey in this section. So, as we often talk about in JoyStream, one of the very powerful features of Web3 in general, and I think of JoyStream as a kind of social media and content platform in particular, compared to the old platforms, is that it really unlocks the ability of third-party developers to build with confidence using open source tools and open source APIs and network effects that are already there to build new experiences. I think that's really fantastic differentiator, and something that in the future we will see a lot of new interesting things come out of. And it's really something that, I think it's very, very difficult. And it's really not in the DNA or really even really possible for the incumbent platforms to do, because just there's a very deep trust problem there. What gateways are really, they're apps that are built on the JoyStream system that have some particular property. So first of all, as any apps built on any chain, of course, you get access to the public data of that chain. So you get the same content and creator pool and assets that are in JoyStream, so the NFTs and creator tokens and all that great stuff. Another really cool feature, which we haven't really been had the opportunity to talk about, is that you really, as a gateway operator, will be able to get paid for the content and for the creators that you onboard, because there is going to be an attribution system that, whenever someone makes a channel or some content, the application that publishes that content for the user will be able to bind the metadata that says this was through app A, B, or C. And that means that when the council is reviewing kind of, all the kind of implicit revenue that comes from the NFT fees and the creator token fees, and in general, just their overall subsidization of content production, which they do through payouts, they also have reliable data for using this attribution system to pay out gateways. And I mean, this is not actually like enforced in the runtime level. It could be. So there's actually nothing technically that prevents that. So we could make it so that whenever an NFT is sold, or whenever a payout is claimed by a creator, that a certain percentage is minted for the app where this creator made their channel. But I think it's wiser to start at the very least with it being a social convention based on the public data that's available. And then later, once this becomes more solidified, you can kind of push it down into the runtime if that ends up making sense. But it's not clear to me that it really even needs to. It can help with giving some, I guess, very long-term assurance to gateways about them getting paid into the very long term. But I think it's in the interest of the council to honor any commitments they make. So I think that's going to be fascinating, because it means you can make kind of a business model out of launching an application and acquiring users and content and creators, and then you get paid in perpetuity for whatever value they bring to the system. So I think that's really nice for people who want to build applications and communities on top of JoyStream. In the long term, of course, you will also want people to charge gateways for the amount of data that they distribute and the amount of access to content on the consumer side that they do. I think that's way too early to do now, but I think that's part of making like the overall system, both for creators and infrastructure providers, and a functional system. But I don't think that's something the council will prioritize in the near term, because it just really doesn't make sense in the very early stages. Of course, each gateway has a bunch of stuff that it could do however it likes. So it can do its own recommendation search. We have started work on a new back end that's going to make it really easy for people to have kind of machine learning based recommendation systems for the content that they want to surface in their gateway. They can add their own monetization for the consumer side, and that could or could not include crypto, which I think is going to be an interesting way for gateways to get paid. And they can differentiate the product experience and the content focus and the terms of service, and then policing that they do of who gets to publish what and in what way on their system. So that's what a gateway is, and so that's kind of the idea. Most people are probably familiar with Atlas, and I think most people think of Atlas as like this play.joystream.org URL where you can go and have like a consumer experience for publishing and consuming content. But I think internally we've moved away from that for a while, but I think also the community needs to shift its perspective a bit and think of Atlas more as a kind of an application framework for making gateways. The first one, I'm sure there'll be others in the future, but think of it as a software package and tooling and standards more than a particular app on a particular website. And it's something that people in our community can take off the shelf as the easiest possible way to hit the ground running and launch something and build their own video community and start attracting creators around whatever vertical or niche that they're interested in. So I think that's the way you should think of Atlas. And so, JS Genesis will continue to add features to Atlas, the code base. But as I'll get to later, the consumer experience on play.joystream.org, which also has been called Atlas, that's going to go away. Okay, so how does Atlas work for people who want to launch their own gateway? This is right now, but this will continue to evolve in the future. So first of all, I think a really nice part of it is that you don't need to be an engineer or developer in order to make and customize, at least in a very basic way, your own gateway. So you'll get to specify a new name, logo for it. So you can change wherever it appears in the product. You get to specify your own kind of category system. So right now on the play.joystream.org version, there are like these very generic content categories, which may not align with how you're interested in dividing the content up for your consumers. But it's not only this page, but I should probably put the page on the screen actually, just to make it more clear. But it's also that it kind of filters all the content based on these categories as well. So if you have a certain kind of focus in your product on certain kinds of content, then you can make sure that only that kind of content appears when you search and when you browse and when you do playback and so on, so that you can kind of build a better and more cohesive experience around whatever vertical you're interested in. So all that is customizable, again, without having to code. Of course, you can specify the policy. And actually, one thing that's missing here is that you also are able to turn off certain features. So if you don't want the NFT feature, for example, I believe you can turn that off. If you don't want the YouTube partner program, I believe you can turn that off. So there are these dials you can also kind of use to disable the parts that don't align with whatever stuff you're interested in. And I'm sure there'll be more of these customization endpoints as time moves on. And of course, if you want to launch a version where you want to turn something off, just make up a request, and I'm sure the maintainers will review it and look at its feasibility and allow you to contribute to the overall framework. So what you get in the framework, you of course, as I said, you get access to the infrastructure, content delivery, storage, content creators, all that stuff. You get the YouTube sync system. So for those who don't know, this is an infrastructure that allows you to have people join the application and kind of prove to your back end that they own a particular YouTube channel, which is the dominant kind of user-generated video content platform right now. And then your infrastructure will be able to replicate all their content over to JoyStream and be presented in your application, really lowering the bar for creators to try to be onboarded in your product. So initially, the idea was to run this on kind of the JS Genesis version of Atlas, but this is now something that everyone will be able to run for the creators that they're focused on. So I think that's pretty cool and pretty powerful. Of course, you get the onboarding faucet protected by CAPTCHA, so that it's, people don't need to go to exchange and go and buy the tokens to do something. You get analytics and social media previews for any content that's posted, so that it points back to your web app. And then, of course, all the future stuff that we're building on the software side will be available to you as well. So I think that's pretty cool proposition. I hope people will start to play with it. There is an excellent guide which has been written up and is available now on GitHub for what exactly you have to do. So you can try it right now. You don't have to wait. And as I said, in Carthage, there will be a new working group which will actually pay people to run these gateways. I'm not envisioning most gateways in the long term will be. Okay, let me step back. Maybe some people don't know what a working group is. It's sort of like a sub department of the DAO where people have jobs and they get paid per, I think it's like per hour or whatever, right? So it's kind of like having a job in a DAO, and there'll be a new department, so to speak, called the Gateway Working Group in Carthage, and there, people working there will probably be the first people who'll be running these gateways. But I don't foresee most people for the long term being part of that group. But that's the easiest place to start. So if you want to do something new and exciting for Carthage, joining that group is probably the place to go. And I hope the council diverts a ton of resources for that group too, to be able to do things, even just on Carthage. All right. So that's Atlas and being a gateway. That brings us to Gleev, which is this name that has been thrown around here and there. So Gleev is basically the application instance that is using Atlas that JS Genesis will operate. And what is it? So it's a web app still. It's available at Gleev.xyz. It has still, I think it's not been fully finalized. It's kind of in test mode. I think that's the right way to put it. But that's where we will be focusing on maintaining our particular kind of content product that uses JoyStream, but it no longer is trying to focus on like absolutely every vertical. It is going to be laser focused on Web3 content, blockchain, crypto, and adjacent content. And it's going to be operated by JS Genesis, not the DAO. So that means, so Gleev, the full version of Gleev, I don't believe will be ready for Carthage, but it will be ready sometime soon after mainnet launch. And the play.joystream.org endpoint, that basically goes away. So there'll be no more general purpose content product that's operated by JS Genesis. So that's kind of how you should think of it, as gateways in general, which is just like anything that's powered by JoyStream, which gets paid to onboard people. Atlas is a specific framework which you can use to easily launch, most easiest ways to launch new apps on top of JoyStream. And Gleev is a specific instance that we in JS Genesis are operating and running on mainnet. So I hope that's clear. So what was the motivation for doing this? We are still building different parts of the infrastructure, which is powering the experience. And I think it would have been hard for us to do that in a good way if we ourselves are not trying to build and maintain a product. So you have Atlas, you have Orion, which is going to be the new back end. Well, there is a version of Orion, but there's going to be a new one, which is better. There's the YouTube Partner Program infrastructure and a bunch of other stuff. And doing that kind of without running one yourself, I think, is very difficult. At the same time, we don't want to kind of be competing with the efforts of the DAO and the community. So if we just continue to run a all-purpose, all-content YouTube-like content platform, I think anyone who wants to do something could feel like, oh, well, there's the JS Genesis one, and those guys are like they have so much experience or whatever. So why would I even bother? We definitely don't want that to happen. And I also think there's definitely an element of just having a beachhead where you are focusing on the audience and the creators who have the easiest time understanding what you're doing. And there are a lot of new concepts in Atlas that people, to a greater or lesser extent, would benefit from understanding if they're going to enjoy the product and believe in the product and want to invest in the product and support the product and give feedback and so on. And that's the NFTs and creator tokens and having a wallet and dealing with Joy being a cryptocurrency and all this stuff, and being more focused on that particular user base allows us to take advantage of this kind of lower entry bar that they have just because of their interests and because of the background knowledge that they have. So that's the reason we're narrowing our focus and hoping that that will create a space for others to focus on whatever they want to do in the DAO and beyond. So yeah, what does this mean for you? What I just said, there's lots of room for experimentation. Being early is probably a good idea because it means you get to get a reward probably for a long period of time for whoever you onboard. You're not competing with Today Genesis. You're, we're supporting you. You're supporting us. We're all working and contributing to Atlas and improving that source code. So, I think there's a great opportunity opening up now in Carthage, and I encourage as many people as possible to seize it. So, the skill set you need, it's good if you're technical, but that isn't almost, I don't really think it's actually the most important thing to get off the ground. It's having a vision for some kind of content vertical, for some kind of community that you believe is underserved when it comes to creating and sharing media and interacting with each other, and creating a space for them, and knowing that community, and being an effective advocate for that community and contributing to the content pool on JoyStream. I think that's more important than being a kick-ass developer in order to get your first gateway going. So go do it. All right. So now we're on to the questions part. Should I be repeating something, Martin? Am I going too fast?
I think, maybe people should get a chance now. It's been maybe later to reiterate rather, if there's no questions. Sounds like a good time to take some questions.
All right. Anyone ask a question before I go to the next question, to the first question? No? Okay. I'll slowly make my way into the first question from Eclipsing Binary, who I haven't seen for a while. Is this person on the call? Oh, there. Oh, hey, Eclipsing. Hope you're doing all right. Hello, everyone. I haven't really given much thought to have Atlas on mobile because I know the tech is not there yet, but now find myself traveling with no access to desktop, and I wish I could have upload to Atlas from my phone. Are there any developments in this area for the JoyStream environment? Any idea of time frame for mobile? Months, years? Thank you. Good question. I think uploading on mobile for like long form video content seems to be relatively low priority. I may be wrong about this. That's the benefit of having other people be able to build products, not just, the one CEO guy, but seems not super important. I think it should be possible though, still with Atlas. I believe one of our designers, Adam, showed us, or someone showed us a demo at least, of being able to use a signer on a mobile phone with Atlas, which is what you need. That's the kind of, because you can already consume content on a mobile phone because it's like responsive and works. It's not going to be as smooth as a mobile application, but it will work. And so I think this is feasible, but I don't know how big the use case is. I do think having a better just consumer mobile experience definitely would be very valuable. But it's a question of how should that work? Should that require a signer? I think we should seriously consider moving away from requiring signing for using Atlas as much as possible. This is just a personal opinion of mine, and moving towards more hosted or like client-side, more ephemeral wallets for doing stuff. So, it depends on which path you want to go if you want to make a mobile application. But yeah, so I guess I'm kind of pushing back on the premise. I think consumption on mobile being better is probably more important. And one thing that probably would help with that is if most content will be coming outside of YouTube sync, then maybe it won't have the right kind of resolution and encoding for it to work well on mobile. So transcoding will be needed on Orion for it to work. So it's like mobile friendly dimensions and bit rates. But I'm not sure if that's really a must either. Okay, hope that was helpful. Next question is, when YouTube partner program from Eclipsing Binary and Omer. Hi, Omer. I hope you're on the call. I'm also working as a supervisor of a large DAO organization. They have an active YouTube channel. They are on, okay, this is really long, but I think basically, what are the deadlines, rewards, and other details of YPP? So YPP has different parts to it. It has the backend infrastructure that does the syncing, where it actually like fetches, monitors YouTube channels, detects when new content is published there, automatically creates corresponding content on JoyStream, makes a transaction, uploads the content to the storage system there, and so on. So all of that has been written, or is done. It's done by Zishan, an excellent engineer in JS Genesis. And I think really it was part of mainnet scope, but we sort of took it out because I became very paranoid. I think Martin also, because of the scope that was involved and the extra testing that would be required to roll it out. But I think basically the infrastructure side and the design work and integration work in Atlas, the framework, is pretty mature, if not entirely finished. But I think there is some testing that needs to happen. In terms of the specific terms, there I think there's some tweaking is required. Frankly, it's been a while since we kind of discussed this, but I think the terms need to be revisited, and they're probably going to be application specific more than platform specific. So yeah. So what does that mean? That means if the mainnet timeline that we have holds, which we have a lot of faith in, then I think YPP is going to get rolled out quite soon after. And I think it's really important to have it ready for Gleev, frankly speaking, because I think it's really required to make it worth the effort of a creator to take a chance, having them sit there and upload a bunch of different channels. And we all know that there are issues with the storage infrastructure and uploads and so on. I think it's pretty important for us. So hope that was clarifying. I might have already asked this, not Clipsing Binary again. Will there be a YPP-like program for creators from other networks? I know a few Instagram video creators with a lot of content. It would be great to get them here. So, I mean, in terms of the technical stuff, I don't think that's feasible. So basically, making like an Instagram version of YouTube Sync, both because I think they're just the possible audience would just be much smaller, and it would just be too much work. Again, but I guess that's basically boils down to the audience again. So, but of course you could have like a version of YPP where like you make a channel and you get rewarded just for that and for publishing some content. That could work. And I again, I'm just gonna a little bit of a cop out. It's been such a long time since I looked at the proposed policy for that, but I think there is a way to support people who are not from YouTube, even though it's called YPP, which is a little bit misleading, but there you go. So I think that is feasible. But again, I think it boils down to each application operator, what they want to do. Would we do that? Sure, I guess if it isn't too complicated. So I guess we will see. I wouldn't prioritize it because I just my hunch is that there are too few of them. But even if you're not part of YPP, I mean, you can still get paid by the DAO autonomously, like because YPP is about the application creator incentivizing you to do so. That's what we would do with Gleev. But the council can still reward people for whatever reason, whatever terms they have. And so there's nothing ruling out that if you're an Instagram creator that you would be rewarded by the council through the creator payouts, which is also part of the kind of the YPP scope. Okay. All right, got 7 minutes. Questions about voting in the mainnet. If Joy tokens are used for voting for a council member, can they also be used for staking to the validator's node? If you keep voting for council members for a long period of time, you will lose 3 to 5% APR on your funds. Any workaround in this? So yes, you can both use it for voting and use it for staking. So that's a yes. I think I said that already in the beginning, and that was a big design decision.
Voting and not being a council member, but I'm not sure if this question is of course about voting, but I assume it's the same thing, although I haven't tried. That council member and voting are equivalent in this sense.
No, they're not actually. But there's very little needed to be a council member, I believe.
That's true.
Not so
Yeah.
much. So that shouldn't be an issue. But voting for council members does not, funds used for that can still be used for validation and vice versa. So there isn't a trade-off there. I guess that maybe undermines the APR problem. So there shouldn't need to be a workaround. But again, we have tested this. It's been audited, reviewed, but it's kind of complicated. So this is a great thing for someone to check and try on Carthage. So please do that. But that should, in principle, be fine. All right. Given the opportunity, how would we reimagine the concept of work? Can you imagine work being different here? I wasn't sure whether to include this because I'm frankly not sure how to answer it, to be honest with you. I think that people tend to overstate the difference between how normal organizations and DAOs need to be organized to be effective, and how reporting works, and how supervision and management and monitoring and rewards. I actually don't think that's going to be super different. I think maybe one thing is like more on the ownership side. So if you want to run a company and you want to give like people, let's say thousands of people from hundreds of different countries, kind of be part owners in the thing, that is difficult. And I think so maybe work where you have a broader set of people who are kind of part owners on more equal terms. Maybe that will be the difference more than their kind of the way they operate day to day. I could see having a broader number of people who are more loosely attached, who are doing like one-off things like bounties and just the open source nature of things where you can just do some work here and there. But I don't want to oversell that. I think some people have the feeling that like this is how everything is going to work and this is how most of the progress is going to be made. I'm not so sure about that, but I guess time will tell. All right, next question is from Ismail. Hi, Ismail. Hope you are on the call. Is it possible for the council to give grants to devs who built dApps on our blockchain? Definitely, and they should. I feel like I haven't heard enough interesting spending proposals. Have you, Martin? Like this should have been more of that. Well, maybe the greatest.
There used to be a little bit more, but bounties kind of. There's been so many bounties I can't even count. But I think that was one problem with the incentives scheme, that we took over the role of paying for everything, so there was no reason for anyone else to do it, and creativity kind of.
But that's been a long saga, but I hope the council does it because it's clearly needed. Just what we went through earlier, in that you have no way to associate reliable identities with validators in Pioneer. Just one of a million things. So I really pray and hope the council is both generous but also judicious in how it distributes funds, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built, enhanced, and improved. So yeah, it definitely should, and yeah, I hope it does. And I guess the DAO just needs to get out of the thumb of Joystream and its oppressive incentive system for that to happen. Okay. As we know, Atlas is software which can fork to build new video applications by gateway providers. Is DAO responsible for Atlas development and own the Atlas? Yes. Yes, it is. The DAO is responsible for everything. I cannot say this enough. Everything. So whatever needs to improve, you should just proceed as if everyone in JS Genesis just dies on mainnet. That's the mental model. And Atlas is one of the things that need to improve. The Colossus needs to improve. That's the storage node. Argus needs to improve. That's the CDN node. The query node infrastructure it all needs to be improved, and needs to be improved in a way that's sensitive to the limitations that the DAO faces at any given time and the opportunities that are there. It all needs to be improved. So go for it. That's all I can say. I hope people have strong visions for how to do that in a sensible way and what's more important, what's less important, but it all needs to be improved. So, that means if people have conflicting visions, like maybe some people think like, creator tokens are horrible, they should just be kept out of Atlas, then there will be a fork, and there will be Atlas and Batless. And one of them will have creator tokens and one of them will not. And that's the way it should proceed in an open source environment. And maybe the DAO funds both. I don't know. So hope that is clear, Ismail. And that's not only for, Atlas, it's everything. It's the marketing, it's whatever, wherever you want to do. Hanzo Hazashi, probably butchered that name, but question for community call. Upon launch in December, probably value of Joy on exchanges is going to be confidential, as I have seen Edover say, no matter the value of Joy, we will still get the estimate of our Joy allocation on Retool, i.e. if Joy is listed on Binance and it's one token, I guess, equals $6 on Retool, one has... I'm not sure exactly what this means, but I mean, so there's no, well, first of all, there's no confidentiality in the exchange rate of Joy. So Joy is the asset. It will have whatever value it does, depending on lots of exogenous variables. So there's nothing confidential about it per se. What people are allocated in the Genesis block is Joy and not dollars. And I hope we've been crystal clear about that. I think no one has really been confused about it, but that
just
should
easier to say a term which people have some kind of relationship to than to say, oh, you're getting, here's 1 million Joy, and like, okay, how many Joy, or 10 billion happies, how much is that? It's about $1. Like, I don't know. I that's a joke, of course. I can't do that math.
So you can go and check on the handbook, like, where does the dollar conversion rate comes from? It comes from the last financing that was done for Joy tokens, and we've just used that. We've always been super transparent about it, and I think that's more useful than just saying like 15 Joy. Like, what on earth is that? So I hope that answers it, Hanzo. If it doesn't, just DM me and we'll work it out. Son Goku says, if Carthage will be next week, so Pioneer and Atlas contents will reset already, aside from active Atlas channels and compiled by content group. Yes, it's all going away. This is like mainnet. It's all going away. The only thing that persists is memberships. Nothing they did. No proposals, no forum, no channels, no videos, nothing. It's all reset. I guess founding member statuses. Yeah, that's it. So hope that's clear. That's a bitter pill to swallow, but we all swallowed it a long time ago. So if it's news, then I'm sorry for your loss, but that's basically the story. That's the reason when people have asked me from time to time, should we get such and such creator on, or this, should we work with such and such partner? I always say that's a great idea, but right now may not be the most appealing timing to try to do that. You should definitely try to partner with them and establish an understanding and so on. But just getting them to publish content right now may be kind of a bit of, they may get bummed about it just all being gone, because their channel won't be there when we launch either. So yeah. Okay. Maria, the new testnet is aimed at attracting content creators. No, it isn't, but I'm just going to continue. At the same time, as I understand correct, Atlas will Gleev, and Gleev belongs to JS Genesis. Yes, and the tasks of its development and promotion are completely under control of JS Genesis. Well, that's yes and no, but let's go with yes. Places in working groups will be reduced. There will be no bounty program. Well, I'm not sure if places in working groups will be reduced. There isn't a bounty program, correct? Because the bounty module has been filtered out. It's in the blockchain, but all the transactions basically don't work. And this is because this is a new version of the bounty module that fixes lots of problems that were in the old version. And the ability to accommodate that in Pioneer is going to take a substantial amount of effort, and waiting for it for launching mainnet would have been nuts. So that's not what we're doing. So that means the bounty program is on hold. It is impossible to promote Gleev for DAO participants. Well, I think you're kind of right. I'm not sure if the conclusion follows from the premises, but I think you're right that promoting Gleev for DAO participants on Carthage launch won't even really be feasible, because Gleev won't even probably be live in its fully operating version. Like, I'm not sure it will be done even. And it doesn't make sense because it's also going to get reset. But I'm not sure what it means for DAO participants. So get back at me if I'm kind of missing the mark here. But the question is, what should the council and the marketing working group focus on? And what exactly should they not do in Gleev product part? I mean, I don't want to tell them exactly what to focus on. I think it has to come from some kind of hypothesis about what's important in order for the mainnet launch to be successful and for creators to start using it and for gateways to launch and so on. So you have to start from that premise. I mean, that's my premise. And if it is your premise, then you can kind of build on top of that. Don't take like direct instructions from me. But I certainly think one of the things I asked the marketing working group to look into is just to help me selfishly for Gleev to compile a list of people that I could reach out to in order to just do the manual work of asking content creator, do you want to come and buy into this, to this Gleev product? Here's the reason. That's the way you have to do it in the beginning. It's really unscalable, unglamorous work when you want to build a network or a marketplace. And so I've asked for more or less a favor there. Do you want to compile a list of creators? That list can be used by anyone, not only in Gleev, but to the extent that you want to go beyond that, there are lots of things to do. I think, these gateways and helping them become successful, and maybe the marketing working group should be more involved in running them. I don't know. So I don't want to give detailed instructions, but I think the kind of mental model should be clear. I don't know that much more than you about the objective facts of what's needed for people to try and learn about the products. You'd be surprised. It's a lot of trial and error. And so you just have to go with the best ideas you have, discuss it with your peers, get the resources you need, and just try. So there's that, Maria. Okay, and then Son Goku. Oh yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, I think this is referring to something else. I'm not sure why. Can we stake vested joys? If yes, then vested joys will be counted as circulating supply. Can we stake vested joy? Yes, you can stake it for validators, like nominating, basically. I guess that's the question. Will it be counted for circulating supply? Yes, it will be. So yes. So I guess that's it. That's the last one. What do you think, Martin? Oh, there's a lot of stuff in the chat. Oh man, there's 25. Jesus. What happened? Come on, Martin. Why do you tell me? Good Lord.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were so busy talking. Is JS Genesis thinking of generating something like subdomains and host instances of Atlas for people that want to run a gateway in a really easy way? I would say that sounds like something the council should facilitate.
Well,
or the gateway working group.
Yeah, well, they can't run subdomains on joystream.org because, unfortunately, guys, it's this horrible Web3 conundrum of DAOs can't own domains. And so it's just centralized for now. So I hope this joystream.org just becomes less relevant. And I don't think it's a good place, actually. Like, if you want to, let's say you want to make like a cooking gateway for like French cuisine, like whatever you want to focus on, I think people will just take it more seriously if it's its own domain with its own brand and not just like cooking.joystream.org. People should just, in general, not think about Joystream. They want to think about the products that they want to use, where they reach other people and find great content and NFTs and can discuss things and flame each other and all the good stuff. So I don't think it's even desirable, even if feasible, but it really isn't feasible in a good way because domains are just stuck in meat space for now. So no, we aren't. What I have written an issue about, which this person probably haven't seen, unless it's like 2 or 3 people, I'm not sure who's asking, is what if there was like who?
Freak Static.
Okay, so maybe he would know, but there could be like a hosted, like, point and click thing for launching gateways. That would be kind of cool, but they shouldn't be using the Joystream domain. But if there was a way, like as I stressed earlier in the presentation here, where did I say it? Yeah, without code, you should be able to launch without coding, and no single line of JavaScript or CSS needs to be tweaked to launch a gateway. So that means it's not that hard to make like a online experience where you could just like click, pick your categories, upload some photos, and then like you will have a Orion node running and some infrastructure running, and that's the easiest way to get started running a video community, and you don't need to do anything. Like you literally don't need to run a server or open terminal or do anything. That would be kind of cool. I don't see why JS Genesis needs to do that, but it could. but it should still, just going back to the core question about domains, shouldn't be on the joystream.org domain. That's a loss. All right, I've gone on for too long with that one. What's the next one? Hey y'all, hey Swargo, hey, am I reading for the right place? Beware Labs at 1835. Did I skip anything?
1850 was the first one I saw. The second question I saw.
1850.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Hi, are you considering adding an app like YouTube Shorts or Instagram Stories?
We're reading now. Are we considering? We have not considered it. It will be a very minimal amount of work to add that form factor. I mean, what is it really? It's just having shorter videos and then having like a basic recommendation engine. I mean, I know maybe I sound like an idiot saying that the recommendation engine is basic, given that that's what they're praised for. But I think for a very, very small content pool, which is what we're going to have for the foreseeable future, I think most off-the-shelf recommendation systems will do an excellent job. But no, I haven't thought of it. I guess it also goes back to the whole mobile use case. I think people like that kind of ephemeral kind of content on mobile, and we don't have like a really great mobile experience. So the answer is no. I haven't thought about it. Maybe someone else on the Atlas team has, but I don't think I've ever seen an issue on the Atlas repo for that. But yeah, so that's the answer to that. Let's see here. So I want you to go back and make sure I catch everything. So hi Swargo, Beware Labs. Sorry, I got caught up. Okay, so hi Beware Labs. Eclipsing binary, is it available for testing? Well, I don't know what he's referring to, unfortunately, or he, she, I don't know who this person is. Adam, you can try it with Pokeball. Yes, so it is possible. So Adam was the person who made this test. Greek static. Yeah, that's the one you answered. Sorry for ranting a bit here. Yep. Will there be budget cuts in the new testnet? Current budget is $400,000 per week. I love these numbers. I don't know that there is anything we're planning that causes a budget cut. Is there, Martin?
For budget cuts in the new test, I mean, do you mean in terms of Joy?
I guess, yeah, the Joy budget. Yeah, the Joy budget.
There is a default value. I don't even remember what it is.
Yeah, it has. So it's not going to change. There's no reason to think it's going to change.
Oh, it's a very good. I mean, I assume you changed it. Didn't you go through all the values? If there's a very different issuance, it should also be a different budget.
No, but Joy budget, right? Joy budget is like what you earn from, like, he's not. I don't think this person.
So it's not the
Joy budget.
Okay. The
I think
Joy
so.
budget.
I mean, given that he or she, I don't know, is denominating in dollars per week, I'm just assuming that is in Joy allocation terms.
410,000.
That sounds like a lot.
Can it be that? Yeah, it does sound like a lot. It's so do we have any Joy left?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be 200 billion issuance instead. Oh.
Don't spook people. I guess the answer is I think nothing is going to change out of Earn. So I think yes, this is their answer. I guess I don't think anything is changing. When will referral rewards be seen on retail? Is Omer? I know he asked this a bunch of times. I didn't know how to respond to it, to be honest, today, so I just didn't bring it in. But are referral rewards not in retail?
No.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's between. Okay. Let's figure that out later, Omer. I guess that sounds important. Now we have it on the record. There's a problem there. Can those that haven't reached founding member be given opportunity in the next phase? Sure. Everyone keeps earning allocations. You know, the founding member status is a dynamic threshold. You know, it's 10K now, maybe something different in the future. Well, I want to promise specific things, but all I'm saying is, you know, going back here, there you go. Keep earning joy. That's all I can say. Okay. I think we're going to wrap up here. Thank you, everyone. It's good to see you all. Thank you, Martin, for keeping me company, although you didn't really cover the chat as well as I'd hope. And get ready to stake. I guess that's the other part of it. Get ready to stake. It's important. Do your staking duty. Get a great ROI. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but hey, there you go. And yeah, thank you, everyone. And Omer will get that settled with the points. Okay. Bye.